Is it possible that a vinyl record, in the era of streaming, amid the enforced silence of military service, at a time when BTS is not even fully active, could vanish from the United States market in just 10 minutes, driven not by the whole group, but by a single name that made the industry pause for a moment? Jungkook? That question did not arise out of thin air, nor was it merely cheap sensationalism pushed by fanatics. It was born from data, from digital traces neatly recorded on the Weverse US and Target pages, from screenshots that spread so rapidly on X that they felt impossible to ignore. In a moment that came with almost no warning, the Orchid Edition vinyl, Jungkook's variant from BTS's fifth album titled Erarang, disappeared from circulation. Sold out. Not on one platform but across two different distribution giants in the United States. And what made it sound like a system error was the speed. Less than 10 minutes. In the world of the physical music industry, especially in Western markets, 10 minutes is not a rational time frame. Even established American artists with multi-generational fan bases usually need hours, if not days, to sell out limited editions. Yet this is precisely where the anomaly began to spark suspicion and curiosity. Why was Jungkook's vinyl the first, and why did it happen in the United States? Weverse Shop US and Target are not small players. Both possess sophisticated logistics systems, demand forecasting, and extensive experience dealing with extreme consumer behavior. If these two platforms simultaneously confirmed that one variant sold out first while others remained available, the narrative could no longer be reduced to fans buying quickly. There was a pattern. There was a shift. There was something quietly changing. The album Erarang itself was designed as a symbolic BTS project. Each member is represented by a vinyl variant with a different color and artistic nuance, as if affirming individual identities within one larger whole. Within this concept, there should have been no first. In theory, purchases would be relatively evenly distributed, especially given BTS's reputation for a fandom that upholds solidarity. But that theory collapsed when the Orchid variant, with its purplish palette closely tied to Jungkook's image, vanished the fastest. A post from the fan account at @RapperJongOn became the spark that ignited a global reaction. The promotional image featuring Jungkook's silhouette alongside the Orchid vinyl was not only reshared thousands of times, but also met with a shift in tone, from shock to assertion. Sold Out King Jungkook was no longer merely a sweet nickname. It was built on evidence. Comments like "Main Pop Boy Jungkook" echoed not as fan war rhetoric, but as an affirmation of something many had begun to realize. Jungkook is not just popular, he is dominant. What makes this story even more peculiar is its timing. BTS is currently in a hiatus phase of group activities due to mandatory military service. Jungkook himself is scheduled to complete his service in June 2025. Within industry narratives, this period should represent a cooling down. Yet reality tells a different story. Demand surged instead. Physical vinyl, not digital. The United States, not Asia. And what drove it was not massive label promotion, but organic conversations among fans. A pre-order price of $24.90 is not an impulsive number for everyone. Amid global economic pressure, buying vinyl is both an emotional and symbolic decision. This means the purchase was not merely about music, but about a representation of loyalty. When thousands of people make the same decision simultaneously, we are no longer talking about taste, but about a collective force focused on a single figure. Target later conducted a restock. This step should have dampened the euphoria. Instead, it reinforced the anomaly. The additional stock sold out again within a short time. At this point, it was difficult to deny that there was an appeal exceeding conventional marketing strategies. This was not coincidence. This was not a system error. This was momentum. Within the global ARMY community, particularly on Threads and Facebook, reports kept emerging. Some counted the minutes. Some compared the sellout time of the Orchid vinyl with other members' variants. Others began asking more serious questions. Was the American market sending a particular message? Not to BTS as a group, but to Jungkook as an individual. Fans were swept into this emotional wave. As one of the largest ARMY bases in the world, the reaction was not merely celebration, but collective pride. Yet behind the celebration, reflective whispers began to surface. If a single name could dominate a market as large as the United States under these conditions, what would that imply for the future power map of BTS? This achievement does not stand alone. Jungkook had already made history through his solo album Golden in 2023, which broke into global charts and cemented his position as a cross-border star. But the Orchid Vinyl event takes that narrative to a different level. This is not a solo release. This is part of a group album. And it is precisely there that the biggest surprise lies. Jungkook's dominance emerged in a space that was supposed to be collective.it, is therefore unsurprising that the industry has begun to take notice. It is unsurprising that global entertainment media are starting to rearrange their perspectives, because what happened in those 10 minutes was not merely about vinyl selling out, it was about a shift in gravitational power, about how a single figure can pull the physical American market in an era when many believe the format is already dead. And here's where the first chapter ends, not with an answer, but with a far bigger question. If 10 minutes were enough to shake two giant US platforms, what else is the name Jungkook actually preparing, and is the world truly ready to face it? If the first 10 minutes felt like a technical anomaly, the hours that followed introduced a far deeper unease, especially for those accustomed to reading the American market through charts, projections, and rational numbers. When Target carried out a restock and the result was the same, the Orchid Vinyl sold out again, the narrative of coincidence collapsed entirely. At this point, the Jungkook phenomenon could no longer be treated as a fleeting burst of fan euphoria, but rather as a far more serious signal about how taste, loyalty, and symbolic power operate within the global music industry. The United States is not an easy market to conquer, particularly for physical formats. Vinyl in the US has indeed experienced a revival over the past decade, but its buyers are largely collectors, nostalgia-driven audiences, or fans of classic rock and pop. K-pop's entry into this space has been underway for years, but it has generally been collective and gradual. What makes Jungkook's case different is its focus. A single variant, a single name, a single color was able to exceed distribution expectations carefully designed by a retailer as large as Target. Within industry analysis rooms, the question began to shift. No longer why ARMY are buying, but why the US market is responding to Jungkook in this way. Because purchasing vinyl is not merely a digital fandom action. It requires extra steps, additional cost, and a conscious decision to own a physical artifact. That means there is symbolic value deemed worth paying for, and Jungkook, in this context, is perceived as possessing that value by American audiences. The name Jungkook itself has long resonated in the West. Since the era when BTS broke into the Grammys, he has often been described as a bridge member, a figure whose visuals, vocals, and persona are considered the most easily accepted by global markets. The album Golden reinforced that assumption. Its tracks received radio play in the US, entered major playlists, and were consumed by listeners who did not even fully follow BTS. But the Orchid Vinyl added a new layer to that narrative. This was not passive consumption. This was a conscious purchase. What is striking is that Ararang was not marketed as a Jungkook-centered project. There was no solo-focused label. On the contrary, its concept strongly emphasized equality among members. Yet the sales results revealed a different reality. Jungkook's variant led the way, and by a margin large enough to be noticed. This is where the discussion began to move into more sensitive territory. Is the United States constructing BTS through a new lens, one that indirectly centers attention on Jungkook? ARMY reactions to this question have varied. Some celebrate it as an individual achievement without pitting it against group dynamics. Others feel uneasy, worried that such a narrative could be exploited by media to create divisions. But data remains data. Facts remain facts. And those facts show that when US consumers were presented with a choice, Jungkook became the fastest decision. Western entertainment media have begun picking up on this signal with language that is more cautious yet unmistakable. Articles that initially only reported sold out are now touching on broader contexts. Jungkook's dominance in the physical market, the concentration of fandom purchasing power, and the potential long-term impact on BTS's post-military promotional strategies. There are no accusations, no explicit claims, but there is a shift in tone. More alert, more analytical. For labels and distributors, This phenomenon presents both opportunity and dilemma. On one hand, focusing on Jungkook promises efficiency and profit. On the other, BTS was built as a collective entity whose strength lies in unity. The Orchid vinyl became a kind of unintentional experiment, one whose results are too striking to ignore. When one variable significantly outperforms the others, future strategies cannot be designed without taking it into account. The context of mandatory military service makes everything even more complex. Jungkook is not actively promoting. There is no tour, no intensive interviews. Yet it is precisely in this silence that his name is moving the loudest. This creates the impression that Jungkook's appeal has reached an autonomous phase, where physical presence and active promotion are no longer primary requirements, a condition that is both rare and extremely valuable in the entertainment industry. For many ARMY in Indonesia, Jungkook's success in the US is a source of pride celebrated without reservation. Social media is flooded with posts affirming that the name Jungkook now stands on par with other global pop icons. Yet amid the euphoria, reflective discussions have also emerged about BTS's future. Once all members return, will the old dynamics fully return, or will they enter a new chapter with a different axis? In this sense, the Orchid vinyl becomes more than just a music product. It functions as an indicator, an unintentional yet brutally honest measuring tool, of who currently draws the fastest financial commitment from a global audience. And the result of that measurement, whether welcomed or not, points to a single name. This story does not offer a comfortable conclusion. Instead, it sharpens uncertainty. Because if the United States, the most competitive market in the world, has already shown its preference so clearly, then the next question is no longer about vinyl sales but about direction. Where will Jungkook move next, and how will BTS navigate this new reality? In the global entertainment industry, especially K-pop, no major event is allowed to pass without consequences. Those 10 minutes that felt irrational have now transformed into strategic, cultural, even existential questions, not only for Jungkook, but for BTS as a whole. The music industry has always operated on patterns. When those patterns are disrupted, the response is never neutral. Jungkook's Orchid vinyl selling out first on Weverse US and Target created an anomaly too visible to ignore. It demonstrated that amid a group hiatus, amid the absence of direct promotion, there is one name that can still move the physical US market instantly. For label executives, this is not merely good news. It is raw data with the potential to reshape future decision-making maps. Yet this is where the BTS paradox begins to surface. BTS was built upon the narrative of 7 equal individuals, each shining on their own yet returning to merge into a single greater identity. For years, that balance has been their defining strength, distinguishing them from other boy bands. However, the Jungkook phenomenon in the US market reveals how market reality can move faster, and more honestly, than conceptual idealism. Consumers do not think in group philosophy. They respond to magnetism. Not a few pop culture analysts have started referring to this moment as a quiet transition phase. Unannounced, not openly planned, yet palpable. Jungkook is not actively taking over the narrative, but the narrative is drifting toward him on its own. Golden opened the door. Arirang, through the Orchid vinyl, unintentionally pushed it further open. What is striking is that public response shows no rejection. There is no massive resistance. Instead, what emerges is an almost reflexive acceptance. Comments like, "This isn't surprising," and "It's Jungkook," of course circulate across social media, as if the global public had long been waiting for this moment without fully realizing it. This may be the most emotional aspect of the entire story. The sense that something big is happening naturally without force. For ARMY, this presents a unique dilemma. On one hand, there is immense pride in seeing Jungkook reach this level of dominance. On the other, there is an awareness that excessive focus on a single figure could potentially shift a balance that has been carefully maintained. Yet this is precisely where the maturity of a fandom is tested. Must individual achievement always be read as a threat to the collective? Or could it become a new asset when BTS returns as a full group? Timing once again becomes a crucial factor. Jungkook is still serving in the military. This means the entire phenomenon has unfolded without his presence at the forefront. No clarifying interviews. No celebratory statements from the artist himself. Jungkook's silence only amplifies the echo of his impact. In an industry typically loud with promotion, this quiet feels almost theatrical. Target and Weverse US themselves have chosen not to offer excessive commentary. The sales figures speak for themselves. However, the decision to restock quickly, only to sell out again, indicates that demand lay far beyond initial projections. In business terms, this is called underestimation. And underestimating Jungkook is now officially on record. So where does all this lead? Many have begun speculating about BTS's post-military era. Will strategies change? Will Jungkook be positioned as the spearhead for Western market penetration? Or will HYB proceed more cautiously to avoid fueling narratives of centralization? Answers to these questions do not yet exist and perhaps are not meant to just yet. What is certain is that those 10 minutes have changed how potential is perceived. The Orchid vinyl did not merely sell out. It marked a symbolic turning point. A reminder that in the global pop world, the most decisive moments often arrive without warning, emerge from seemingly simple products, and then force everyone to pause and rethink. For Jungkook, this may be just one episode in a long journey. But for the industry, for BTS, and for millions of fans around the world, those 10 minutes in the American market have become a story that will continue to be referenced, remembered as the moment when something that made no sense suddenly felt undeniably real. And as the echo of that event slowly faded, one impression remained with striking force. The world was not witnessing merely a rapid sellout, but standing on the edge of a narrative shift. Jungkook's Orchid vinyl had transformed into a symbol that an artist's power is no longer measured solely by stages, digital charts, or the volume of promotion, but by the ability to move collective belief within an extremely short span of time. Those 10 minutes seemed to become a new language of the industry, a language that delivers its message without words, that true magnetism works even in silence. And when Jungkook ultimately returns to the public eye, the world may come to realize that what happened at Weverse US and Target was not the climax of the story, but the opening of a far larger chapter, one whose impact has yet to be fully predicted.